Okay, I'm waiting on the news because I'm on this all day. I want to know what's happening in my city.
Find the defendant, Amber Guyger, guilty of murder as charged in the indictment.
After just about 6 hours of deliberations, the jury comes back with a guilty of murder verdict against fired Dallas police officer Amber Guyger. Good afternoon. I'm Dan Godwin. Let's get right to Fox 4's Sean Rabb at the Crowley Courthouse.
Get it right, Sean. Fix your suit.
Sharing their reactions to this verdict. Sean?
And good afternoon to you, Dan Godwin. I can tell you this place erupted.
Wrong flow, wrong dough.
Announcement came from Judge Tammy Kemp that this jury had returned a unanimous verdict of guilty for the murder of Botham Jean against Amber Guyger. There was one woman who let out a yell in the courtroom and was immediately admonished by the judge. But then some 200 plus people likely were in the hallway outside the 204th District Court, and you could hear the cheers echoing into the foyer where we are, pretty good distance away, as they were showing their elation. This was a trial and a case where there were clear lines of separation, those who felt Amber Guyger was guilty of murder and those who saw this as a mistake and a tragic and horrible accident. For the many people here today who were cheering, the killing of Botham Jean was just that, murder. Amber Guyger, the former Dallas police officer who at the end of her shift on September 6, 2018, came home from work, went to the wrong floor, then to the wrong door, thought Botham Jean was an intruder in her apartment.
Went to the wrong floor, went to the wrong door.
One of two bullets struck him in his heart, his lung, his stomach. He died. She was initially charged with manslaughter, and then when the case went to the district attorney, then DA Faith Johnson said, now it's in our hands, and we'll take it to the grand jury, and the grand jury indicted on the higher charge of murder. And today, after 6 days of testimony, and then closing statements yesterday, the jurors came back this morning after a couple of questions, a question about manslaughter and a question about the Castle Doctrine. They came back with murder for Amber Guyger. The reaction this morning from attorneys Lee Merritt and Darrell Washington have to do with the immediate impact of this case and really its larger impact. Let's listen.
It's a sad reality that this community waited on pins and needles to decide whether or not someone could be held guilty for killing an unarmed black man in his home while eating ice cream. This should have been automatic. This should have been anticipated and expected, but it is extremely rare. And we, from this day forward, we're leading the way. We are pushing so that it is not rare, but that this is common. That justice continues to roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream.
All right.
We got a murder conviction. Their lives would never be the same ever again.
Never.
But we just hope that now people who live in the South Side flats, people who live in houses that look identical, this ruling will now say that you are safe to be in your homes, and people can no longer just say, I made a mistake and took your life.
Right. You was a police officer, ma'am. You knew better.
Never in history, recent history or antiquity.
You knew better, you gotta do better.
Unique, particular set of facts, and they may very well not be one like this again. So now, what's next in this case? The punishment phase starts immediately, 1 o'clock this afternoon. There'll be testimony in that phase. We're going to hear now from Botham Jean's family, his mother. We heard from the sister at the start of the guilt or innocence phase. Should hear from the mother and maybe dad in this punishment phase. It's all about trying to determine how much time Amber Guyger will serve to pay for justice and to make justice welcome in this case. Will it be 5 years?
Justice must be served.
Will it be a little longer here in near 99 years? Don't know.
That's Amber Guyger,
Witnesses they're going to
the
have
police officer who did the shooting. Her.
But remember, with the last police officer charged with murder, Roy Oliver, the shooting in the car.
I remember that.
That sentence was 15 years. So we'll see what this jury does with Amber Guyger in this unique set of circumstances. Also told by those in the courtroom that the jurors were expressionless and stared straight ahead as they returned after deliberating and this verdict announced and read by Judge Tammy Kim. Dan?
So, Sean, once the sentencing phase gets underway this afternoon, it's pretty certain we'll be hearing more emotional testimony from family members of Botham Jean talking about
That's where they stayed.
their sense of
Him and her.
loss. Might we also
He stayed on the
hear
first
more
floor, she
about
stayed on the second.
Amber Geiger.
I would think so.
But she
I would
went to
think that
his
the state
apartment
would
thinking she was at her
certainly
apartment.
have some more evidence they want to put
To
on
give some
in this
detail on
case.
what this
And
about.
I think we might also hear from her mother, or perhaps her sister.
That's
her
him,
brother.
the young man
I think
that got
we will hear
killed.
from those who love her, who have been in this courtroom for some of her testimony, who have at times had to share room in that courtroom, sitting side by side with the family of Botham Jean. I think they're going to talk up for their loved one, their family member. Yes.
And we have not yet heard from the attorneys who were representing Amber Geiger. It'll be interesting to get their thoughts and find out what, if any, moves they are planning.
Well, still a gag order in place until the end of the trial. And the trial's not over until the punishment phase concludes. That's why we have not heard from Botham Jean's parents outside of the courtroom. We will hear from them.
Botham Jean is the young man
but
that got
not yet
killed
any
here in
of the
Dallas
gaggles until it's
at
over.
his apartment eating ice cream. Police went to the wrong. She stayed in the apartment complex and she went to the wrong floor, wrong apartment, opened the door and shot the man,
Who were saying, you know, if
thinking
they
she
would
was
not
at
be
her
shocked
apartment.
If Amber Geiger or if the jury had decided that she was guilty of no crime whatsoever. So there are going to be some who were surprised by the guilty of murder verdict that came down this morning.
Yes, I'm sure there will be some surprised by the verdict. Lori Brown is going to have more on that in just a moment with one of our legal minds at Fox 4. I can tell you, though, that the opinions have been all over the place from day one about this, including over the length and breadth of this trial.
Yeah, 'cause we
Many
here
state
in Tech
attorneys
Dallas
said
thought
not
she was
guilty
gonna
of
get off.
murder. So it was a cascading of opinions about what this jury would do.
Yeah.
The beauty of this moment is you can never tell.
Glad I wasn't on that
what
jury.
citizens
I've
will
been on
do,
the jury
but they're
before.
confined to a jury
That stuff
room
ain't
and have to
fun.
work it out for themselves.
That stuff is nerve wracking.
Sean Rabb at the Crowley Courthouse.
Probably would have been on that one if I'd have went.
For the update. as Sean mentioned,
My ass didn't go.
Lori Brown is also at the courthouse this afternoon. She
Won't try to
joins
do
us
that.
live with more analysis and reaction to today's verdict. Lori?
Dan, Stephanie Ola, a criminal defense attorney, has been following this case very closely. And Stephanie, the jury deliberated for just about 5 hours. Is that surprising?
It's not necessarily surprising, but I think that considering how much the jury had to think about in that charge, it's a pretty fast verdict. It took Judge Kemp about 20 minutes just to read it to them. So once the jury goes back into the jury room, they elect a foreman. They go back through the charge again, and they're thinking about two different offenses: murder or manslaughter. The defenses of mistake of fact, self-defense, whether the Castle Doctrine should apply, and then a great deal of other things that are common in almost every charge. So I think that their pace of deliberation in this case was pretty quick.
All right, in this case, I mean, it started out as a manslaughter charge, and now here we are with a murder conviction. What do you think about that verdict?
Well, she was arrested for manslaughter. She was never charged with manslaughter. Once the district attorney's office got the case, they sent the case to a grand jury, and the grand jury came back with a murder charge. Murder, I think, is the charge that makes the most
Murder
sense in
is
a
the
case
case
like
that they
this.
gave
If
her.
you point a loaded gun at a person and pull the trigger, and they die.
Murder
that's
is the
murder.
case that she caught.
Manslaughter is generally used in a case where something might happen and you do it anyway. You know a person might die, but you do it anyway. Like, for example, if she would have shot a warning shot into the apartment that ricocheted and it hit Botham Jean, that's more like a manslaughter fact pattern.
Okay, so now we're entering the sentencing phase. What sort of sentence could she receive here?
Well, she can't get probation. The jury at this point is considering only prison time, and they're considering a sentence from 5 years to 99 years. The
You
difference
going to
between
jail.
the
Vic
guilt
said you
phase
going
of
to
the trial
jail.
and the sentencing phase of the trial is that the guilt phase is all about that one specific incident and any facts that are related to
You
her
just made a
shooting
mistake,
Buffy
sweetie.
John. Now, once we move into the sentencing phase, now the question is everything about Amber Geiger as a person that would factor into what would be an appropriate sentence for her. Any criminal history, which she probably doesn't have, any past bad acts, information, more information about Botham Jean the person, any more information that we can have about Amber Geiger the person. We're going to learn a lot more about her and a lot more about him in this next phase, and that's going to help the jury decide what the appropriate thing to do, what the appropriate sentence for her will be.
Stephanie Ola, thank you for your perspective there. So there's a lot more to come here at the Frank Crowley Courthouse. Sentencing phase begins at 1 p.m. and we'll be sure to bring you updates here on Fox 4. Dan?
All right, thanks very much, Lori Brown. And as Lori mentioned, the punishment phase for Amber Geiger, who's this morning was found guilty of murder. Punishment phase begins at 1 p.m. We will stream that live on our station Facebook page. Just search Fox 4 News, and we'll be right back.
Okay, I'm on this all day, so y'all might not want to come to my page today, because I'm on this all day, because this is important for our city, because we suffered for a year behind this, and the city went in a chaos almost behind this. So I'll be back at 1.